Well, I think one of the questions actually we talked about earlier, or at least in general terms, somebody was asking whether you have any designated successor.
I think, well, in my case, I don't feel that I'm a master, and certainly not a grandmaster. And it would be idiotic if I designate someone as my successor. Who am I? That's my thinking.
When I think you certainly have earned your place in history. You were talking about the guys you were referring to as grandmasters being very significant in the history. I mean, I think one of the main areas where you can claim to be significant in history is spreading the word outside Japan. I mean, to be fair, if it wasn't for you, most of us would have found Japan totally impenetrable.
Nevertheless, I don't feel like I need the successor.
Yeah. Oh, well,
who would that be? And if you look around the other masters who will soon pass away, I don't think they have these thoughts.
Do you think that's more of an old school idea of the, of the sort of the deshi shadowing the master for years, and before they're even allowed to pick up a piece of rope, or at least to tie with it?
Well, if you want to...
Do you think it's all changed? Do you think that's old school now?
If you want your school to continue, then you would look for successor.
Yeah.
But basically we all just do our stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't see any need to succeed someone.
Because it certainly seems that teaching's changed. I don't know, maybe we don't see it, but it seems that people are more actively taught now than the old school idea of the deshi stealing knowledge, and being allowed to tidy the ropes up, and then finally being allowed to untie some stuff, and then eventually being allowed to tie something. Everything's more fast tracked these days, and I think maybe, I don't know, has that changed it, do you think?
Today, if you wave money, teacher will come.
Yeah.
And you get taught.
Yeah.
In the old days, for example, Akichidenki made inquiries whether he should teach me, whether it's appropriate to teach me, because at that time I was already Osada Steve. So I had my own thing going. That's how people would think first before they teach someone.
Yeah.
And Yukimura Sensei, I waited for 7 years before he offered to teach me.
Okay.
So today, if you pay the money, anybody will teach you anything.
Yeah.
In the old days, so I learned that.
I mean, you were even prepared to teach me, for God's sake,
Even for free, huh? So I apprenticed the old way, I could say. Oh, I really studied hard.
Yeah. How long do you think it takes people to get good?
To get good, so you have two things. You can, if you're dexterous and if you're good with rope, you can be a couple of years, you can be very advanced. But if you lack the communicative skills, you will never reach any mastery or anything.
Yeah.
And that takes, you cannot expect to transfer the communicative skills of Yukimura Ryu. That takes years and years and years. And my students, they come every year again and again and again to deepen the knowledge. It's not, oh no, you got it. It's not like that.
No.
It's not like a takatekote.
Yeah.
Here it is. But there's so many subtleties and intangible things.
Yeah, it's one thing that I've been aware of many times, and finally I got used to it, and I've come to expect it now. There was many times when I thought, oh yeah, right, I've got it now, I understand it, and then I go to Japan, I come back, and God, what was I thinking? You know, I hadn't got a bloody clue.
Mm.
And now I know that. I know I haven't got a bloody clue now. You know, so I don't get disappointed, you know, and surprised when that situation arises, because I've come to expect it. I know that it's just like this onion. You keep peeling layers off, and there's another one underneath, and there's another one under that. It never stops.
Yeah, as a rigger, you undergo phases.
Yeah.
So after learning a little bit, you feel, oh, I know everything, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then slowly you see that you will never...
You appreciate how...
Never-ending story.
That you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the big problem with this game, is there's so much that you don't know until you know it. Then it's bloody obvious, you know. But it's certainly something that took me a long time to get my head around, and I see it so often in people that are learning. They think they know, but it's all the other stuff below the waterline that they've never even dreamed was there.
People want to learn, but to what extent or how deeply do they want to learn?
Well, this is it, yeah. Do they just want to tie their girlfriend up and fall limbs to the corners of the bed and fuck them, or do they want to, you know, get to much deeper levels? Do they want to become a bull star performer, or whatever it might be? I mean, there are so many different levels. But I think that certainly we were talking about earlier that, you know, it's about so much more about the interaction with the person than the patterns and you know, whether you can do this suspension or that tie.
You said tying parcels, tying people, not parcels.
Yeah.
That's the main difference.
Exactly. I mean, fortunately, I got a glimpse of that idea very early on, which is why I've sort of stuck with that. And funnily enough, it was Midori's book that actually enlightened me to that angle. And an article I read before I actually started getting involved with sort of Japanese variant, you know, beyond the basic sort of very simple Western bondage, you know, 4 limbs to the corner of the bed type stuff. I think that was a huge help, realising that there was that aspect to it, even if I didn't know much about it. There were just a couple of very simple things that stuck in my mind about just simple things like, you know, if you're tying someone, not dancing around them to put the rope on, but moving them and being in control, being dominant. That was a huge help, and which is one of the reasons why I like to try and push that aspect and try and encourage people to get good with one piece of rope before they get a whole bag of it out. Because just simply adding more rope isn't the answer. It's adding the first one in the right way that's the answer. So much of what we were doing this weekend was just that one rope.
Yeah, in these 4 days that I have been teaching here, the maximum number of rope was 3 pieces I used.
Yeah.
And it was all filled. I mean, it's not there were no timeouts or boring times.
No, exactly.
So it's not about using much rope, but using rope efficiently and with heart.
Yes. I totally agree with that. That was my biggest takeaway. So, is there anything else here? I mean, how would you say that your teaching varies, or does it vary from, you think, from the way that other people are teaching? Do you have a sort of unique approach, or?
I don't really know how the others are teaching.
Yeah.
But I teach... I don't teach a lot of technical things, but how to interact, how to get the last drop of juice out of one little pattern. That's how I try to teach.
I think something that sort of struck me, certainly from, I don't know how your teaching's changed in over the years, really, because I sort of haven't been through the initial stages again, you know. But I do remember being drilled relentlessly on the Takata Kote, and it was only afterwards, looking back, that I realised that so much of it was wax on, wax off. You know, in so much as by repeating that exercise under your watchful eye so many times and getting my wrist slapped for this, that, or the other, I realised that what I was doing though was practicing so many of what I refer to as ingredients.
Yeah,
that then transferred to other things, and I did have this sort of light bulb moment where I suddenly went, I realise why I'm doing this. You know, it's perfecting all those movements, you know, the making the sticks, the finger, and all of that stuff, which is so applicable to everything else. Because without that, you know, you're like some fumbling teenager trying to find their way around a woman for the first time. That really doesn't work with rope, you know, if you're not handling it with dominance and confidence, you're imparting that lack of dominance and lack of confidence to the person that you're tying.
I developed that school system, which has levels, 9 cues and then black belt, blah blah blah. So each cue already has a dozen different ties that are being taught in a dojo environment. And over time, when I started developing this, very few people, as we mentioned, nobody was able to do a Takata Kote at a certain time.
Yeah.
Early 2000s.
Yeah. I remember being appalled by that comment, thinking, oh my God, you know, this is going to put the cat among the pigeons.
So the level...
But you were right, absolutely right.
The general level of being able to tie was very low. And I had students that would go in between, with a finger in between the rope and destroy the rope. So completely clumsy. That's why early on I insisted on speed, on accuracy, and the repeat.
Yeah.
But these days you have tens of thousands of accomplished rope people. You can't teach them, you can't expect them to do 10 times the same thing. So these days I focus more on getting the last drop of joy out of each time. You were asking whether my teaching has changed.
Oh yeah.
And one reason is that the customer has changed, also at the level of accomplishments of individuals.
Yeah.
So in the old days there was a strong emphasis on speed, which nobody does in Osada anymore.
I think the speed is useful though.
Test on speed.
Because if you can do it fast, you can do it slowly. Yeah. But if you can do it slowly, you can't necessarily do it fast. So yeah, I think that I found that really useful. Because, you know, if you're not doing it right, you just trip up if you try and do it fast. So you've got to, you know, you've got to have your technique right, you know, you've got to be using the gaps, you know, you've got to be making sure you're not catching your knots and bringing your rope through at the right angle to ensure that, and all the little details that make the tying smooth.
Okay, so back to speed up. To close the circle, speed up again, and test for speed.
Yeah.
And the fastest man wins.
I've seen some pretty impressive.
It's one final here, peace together, smile into the
Well, I think
peace.
that's it.
Thank you, Bruce,
Thank you.
for your time
And you.
to talk to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us your time.
I'm so happy now.
Right. Well, you're going to have some time off now.
Okay.
We've worked you too hard. This poor guy was actually giving up his holiday to do this teaching.
Arigato, everybody.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you.